It is raining outside, which you can maybe even hear. Maybe even very loudly. But you know what that means? It means it's finally not plus fucking 30 Celsius. So it's possible for me to stream. And I have some cool interesting things about, as usual, Neovim to show you. I'll be reopening the window most likely when I get too hot again, so don't get too excited, but I'll close it for now. Let me pop a snooze, and actually let me go to the chat. Very important. I don't really... should probably change the max layout on this desktop into a to the left kind of layout, because I don't really have multiple windows on here anymore. I used to have a workout? No, I don't. A workflow where my main window is my editor, and then a whole different window is my terminal. And I don't really do that anymore. I usually do something like this, where I pop in and back a terminal in Kitty for like small commands, and when it's something a bit more like big, where I want to see the output, I just have a terminal on a different desktop. So I think I should probably change that. Let me actually go add it. U layout to left, make smaller, non-main. Okay, I want to start with something fun. Checking if you can hear me. Okay, you can. A friend has shown me or sent me a hilarious page that I want to share with you, or rather to read with you. Let's zoom in a bit so it's a bit easier for you to read. The Cock-Proof Assistant. Welcome. Learning about Cock. Cock is a formal proof management system. Provides a formal language, blah blah blah. Where's the funny? The reference manual and the standard library documentation are the primary documentation for Cock. You don't say. However, to learn about Cock, we recommend starting with a tutorial or book, such as those listed on the documentation page. Tutorials and fucking books. Reference manual, you don't say. Standard library of Cock. Real page, by the way, I didn't create it, I just found it. Running Cock. That's scary. You don't need to install Cock to get started. You can run Cock in your browser using JS Cock. Eventually, you'll probably want to install Cock on your system with a user interface of your choice. This is literally the experience of trans masks, I think. Try Cock in your browser. Install Cock on your computer. User community. Cock has a large and active user community. Yes, I know. They contribute formal developments. Cock extensions. Okay, I understand maybe it didn't get to them writing all of this text before, but it should have gotten to them on fucking Cock extensions. That's a real thing. And tools based on Cock. I have some. See the Cock package index. And the awesome Cock created list of projects and resources. Contributing to Coq. Coq is free, open source software. Its development is largely blah 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 blah. The Coq team, I shit you not, the Coq team manages the development of Coq. You can contribute to the development of Coq? Really? Huh. Suggesting enhancements. How about we make it thicker or bigger? Academic and industrial users are also encouraged to contribute financially to support the maintenance and evolution of Coq and its ecosystem through the Coq Consortium. Coq team. The funniest part about this page? The Coq team has decided that Coq will be renamed. Really? Why? Why? What's the reason? I cannot, for any reason, even think of why would you want to do that. That's a brilliant name. We hope to have a new visual identity and website. This is not the first time I'm reading this page, by the way. It's still hilarious to me. Top 10 humor of all time. Hope that was fun for you too. Let me go show you a built-in NeoVim functionality that I actually wanted for a really long time, and I'm sure you have as well. But it sounds so abstract and so like out of the left field that installing a whole ass plugin for it seems kind of too much. And you would also expect that, oh, there's like no default functionality for it. Let me show you what I mean. I didn't actually prepare this example. It just so happened that I just recently added this. Whoops, not that. So, what do I want to do here? Have a bunch of mappings here. All of them start with the same thing, and they all like do similar things. However, the last key of all of these mappings will be different. So, oftentimes, you might do something like you select in visual block mode, do capital I, then do 0, then reselect them again, then do G, Control A, and this will incrementally increment all the numbers in your visual block selection. So you can see I have from 1 to 18 now. This is very, very convenient. Thanks to a plugin called Dial NeoVim, you'll find it. I even have the functionality of I add A everywhere, reselect, and then do G Control A, and I can even increment letters. So I have B, C, D, etc. up to S. Very, very cool. However, here I don't have like any way in terms of consistency to be like, oh, it's just this pattern. There's no pattern really. So this will be C, capital C, F, capital F, and I guess there is a pattern somewhat, but it's not really what I'm talking about, because I could sort them and then do two actions to add the lowercase and uppercase. That's not really like mind-blowing at all. Then H, L, M. What even was it for man? Oh, A, I see. See, I immediately fucking forgot. Then M, P, T, and J. So basically, all of these lines will have what is effectively random input. How do we go about inserting all of that input? Well, you go here into insert mode, and you press S, or rather C. And thankfully, the way that the block cursor works in Vim, in this specific example, we get to just go down and do I again and insert a different character. But imagine that this example would be slightly different and I would need to insert 2 characters. It just makes sense for the example. Well, now what I would have to do is do JHH, or rather JH, and then I, and then anytime I'll just continue inserting the same text, but imagine that it would be different, right? So anytime I finish inserting a string, I have to do GHI every time in all of these. Okay, there is a bit of a better way of doing it, although it only gets better once there's like at least 3 characters, more or less. So let's say I inserted these 3 characters. Instead of doing HH, rather JHHI, it's getting a bit big now, right? What I can do instead is use the dot mark. So I jump to mark dot, and it's actually not what I remember it being. Hold up, I might be misremembering the dot. Maybe it's like so the mark that I'm thinking about is the single quote mark, if that's even is true. Let me make sure I'm not like lying to you. Single quote mark, and that refers to the last place. No, I feel like I'm still lying. Maybe I meant the caret one. It would be remapped for me. So let's see what I have it remapped to. So for me it's go to slash, but in reality it's the caret mark. So this mark refers to the last place where you did an insertion. Last place where you inserted some text. So we can go to it, and unfortunately it still goes to the end of our insertion. I was hoping that it would go to the start, but no, it goes to the end. So this possible neat solution where you would be able to jump to the start and then just JI is a bit easier. Even that is like not a thing, unfortunately. Quite sad. But there's actually built-in functionality for this sort of thing. Let me start immediately using it, and then I'll tell you what it actually is, so that you can kind of see it from example. Some text, more text. You can see how the length of what I put in does not matter. You might have noticed from the screen key, I am pressing Ctrl G and then J in insert mode. And what that does is that it moves your cursor to the next line, to the column where you started inserting. And this way you can quickly insert a bunch of different text on following lines. So this specific example, how I could use it is here I insert C, then I use my special remap because Ctrl G J is ridiculous to press. I have them mapped to Alt square brackets, because you can also do Ctrl G K. Not sure if I will ever use it, but might as well have both mappings. So C, capital C, F, capital F, H, capital H, and basically you can see how it can continues on. The better way to go about it would be to sort the set file type and E into 2 distinct blocks, and then just copy all the inserted lowercase letters as block, paste them in, and make them uppercase. So there's technically no need for me to actually typing them in one by one like I do here, but you can see mostly the idea of what I'm doing here. And this is very fucking convenient. I've been looking for an ability to do something like this for a while, and turns out it's just built-in functionality. It's Control G J and Control G K, which I suggest you remap to something else unless you are fine with pressing Control G. I really dislike it. Overall, Control is the most difficult modifier to reach, first of all, and then I use opposite hand modifiers. So for the keys on the left side of the keyboard, I would have to use the right control, and that one is even more difficult to reach. And trying to do it with same hand is just ridiculously unergonomic, so I don't like pressing control if I don't need to. Which is why I have them remapped. I found a cool blog, which I believe I have shared with you on the last stream, but actually I'm not gonna send that yet. So I've been reading it, and I got some ideas from it. First of all, I find it funny how a bunch of the things that I kind of naturally discovered and fixed about NeoVim in my configuration is also mirrored in that blog. Like, my problems, turns out, were not unique, which is good. And some other people came to very similar or the same conclusion. Or at least the writer of this blog, which I'm pretty sure I talked with, but I don't remember at this point who that person is. So let's open the blog. But I'm not going to show it to you yet because I want to show you the idea of how I interpreted it. Actually, no. I think this is going to be better written than my explanation. So here you go. I recommend reading it. I'll try to explain the main idea behind it though. Anytime then you want to make a macro, it's a whole entire process. First you press Q, or oftentimes I feel like it's remapped because I see no reason for such an accessible key to be taken up by something that you do kinda rarely. Which is why I have it remapped to leap. And for me, recording a macro is actually ZL. So, first of all, you press Q, then you have the mental block of deciding how to spell, here fucking go, pneumono ultramicroscopic silica volcanoconiosis. I guess like that. It looks correctly spelled, which is very funny. I also disabled mouse support in NeoVim, which is really nice. Oops. Also, welcome. So you have the mental block of having to decide which register you even can use. You might store text in some registers, you might already store some macros in other registers, and now you have to actively make the decision, which register should I use? Maybe you just got used to always pressing QQ and never worrying about it. If so, I think that's like the solution, honestly, but I haven't, so every time I record a macro, I usually go for U, the macro at register Q, or U, but still, I'm like, I take a moment to think about it. Okay, then you record your actual macro. And let me actually wait, is it not ZL Lmao? Oh, ZL executes. ZU records. As you can see, I'm not like very comfortable with using macros, and I've talked in length already on my streams what ways I can use to avoid having to use macros because of many of their annoyances, but I'm not gonna talk about it again. Okay, so ZUU, you can probably see why I usually picked U. Now you do whatever action you want. Let's say we want to jump 10 lines down. Then we stop recording. Then we have to execute the macro at U, and only then can we do repeat the macro at there. So you have to actually this entire process takes 4 steps. Where the fuck was I? Yeah, here I am. So the step takes 4 thingies. First, you do an action. Second, you realize that, oh, actually this action is kinda too much to do manually and can be turned into a macro. So you record a macro. 2, right? 3, you execute that macro. 4, now that it is the latest macro you have executed, you can actually use by default @ symbol to repeat the previous macro. And what that ends up being is 4 different actions just to then being able to continue on spamming that macro to format the remainder of your text. And that is considering that you didn't fuck up recording the macro, which is very, very easy to do. But for that, you can install my plugin Editor that I have talked about previously. Even still, it's quite a lot. And this article suggests an interesting idea, which I might be changing quite a bit and paraphrasing quite strongly, and I probably am. So if I'm putting words in their mouth, I'm sorry. But the way I interpreted it, you create a custom mapping that records a macro into a predefined register. I picked the E register. And then you make a mapping that executes the macro at specifically that register. I gotta open the window, I'm already heating up. So, what this ends up being is that 1, I guess you still recognize that you need to record a macro. Then 2, you quickly record it, you don't need to think, you basically have a register that is specifically and only for temporary macros that you don't intend to store. And if you decide later that yes, actually you do want to store it, just use Editor once again. It's very, very helpful in terms of macros. Then we do 10J or whatever it is. I can now press the same macro to finish recording it, and that's thanks to functionality that we're gonna get to. And now I can use my other mapping, just immediately start executing that specific macro. It is actually not that often that you need to use more than 1 macro at a time. Usually there's just one that you want to record quickly, repeat a bunch of times, and then probably never use it again. Some macros might be like continually useful for sure, and you might store them in some registers, and then you might just move them into their own mappings for what it's worth. But still, you might want to store 2 macros, which is why I still retain an ability to record into some register, first of all, to execute any macro, and also some mapping that simply repeats the latest macro, not necessarily the macro at E. So let's go to direct and look at the things that I have. So these are like the default things. Capital X executes the macro at E, backslash records macro into E, and ZZ executes the latest macro. This might not make a lot of sense for your config, like be aware. I guess these are pretty safe. This usually won't be. The reason why I'm using ZZ here is because I have scroll off set to 999. So ZZ is very useless to me, but it might be very important and useful to you. In which case consider using scroll off. The really nice thing about backslash is that I can press backslash both to record into that register and to finish recording. Let's go to my auto commands, and you can see the two auto commands that I created here. First of all, we just make a mapping like I just showed you that is like the default one. But then when we enter the mode of recording a macro, this event happens. And so we set the backslash mapping to just be Q to make it so it just stops recording. Because if we didn't add this, it would still be QE, which means that every time you stop recording a macro, it goes to the next word. This is kind of annoying. And this is what this article also touched on. But then once you leave the recording, it gets brought back to its normal behavior. It's actually like super nice. Yeah, and that's about it, basically. And I actually experienced how nice this actually is today, right after making that macro. You can see how I have set file type here a bunch of times, and then E and blah blah blah. So a lot of this gets repeated. And this is the prime example of a place where you could make a macro. Also, another thing that I actively wanted is to make the E line immediately follow the set file type line. I didn't want these to be in two separate blocks. This is so I can, whenever I want to add a new thing, I could do yank, go, paste, change these two to something, and change the G's and C to something. It's just way easier to add new stuff when they're like together like this, rather than having to edit in two different places. So I wanted to make it immediately follow. And I decided to record a macro. We can actually redo this again. I would usually not do it because I would be scared, but it actually was so simple and nice that I'm not afraid of doing this again. Like, it was just that good. So I record into E, go to the start of the line, E, we yank, paste. I fucked up there. I didn't need to go to E or go to the start of the line, but it really doesn't matter. I go to the end of the word, toggle case, find this, then do E, word, T, test dot, and then plus. I believe I didn't miss anything. Yeah, plus, and I just press backslash again, and now x, 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 x. Haha, she said sex. And here it is, like, literally. The only, like, few wrongs here is that it's has to be MD instead of Markdown, Py instead of Python, and TXT instead of text. But that can easily be noticed and changed. But everything else I was able to build out very quickly and easily. And then do remember that if I fuck up in like an unrepairable way, I can just use editor to edit this macro if I want to, and then blammo, and I can use it normally again. So this actually makes macros quite a bit more viable. Try to find some mapping that is easy to press and easy to spam that you could use for this kind of thing, because it's like super good. I guess the backslash, like the recording part, doesn't really need to be spammable at all. Yeah, actually, like at all. But it was free, so I used it. Then let's close every fold. I recently learned, and I've seen them before while reading the docs, but I didn't really get what they did, really. As usual, their explanation is kinda, huh? But now, with more context, I actually understand what those mappings do. So, currently, my fold level is 0. That means that every fold in this file is closed. Let's say I open this fold, and that opens a lot of things. This is intended, though. I open this one, maybe I'm searching for something, and all of these folds got opened. Now, the action that I want to do is reapply fold level, so basically close folds again to my desired level. Because it is 0, what I want is to close every fold, but if your fold level was 1 or 2 or 3, it would only close up to that level, right? So I want to do that, but also in this single action, I also want to open the fold that my cursor is on. So it's two things at a time. I can press ZX, and you can see at the top all the other folding sections got closed because fold level got reapplied, and then the fold at my cursor got opened. This seems wildly specific, right? But I actually noticed it being a very, very, very common thing that you want to do, to the point where it makes a lot of sense to use it instead of ZO. Like, for most situations at least. You might want to keep folds open, perhaps, but not always. And Z capital X does the same thing, but it does not open the fold at your cursor. So you can just use Z capital X to reapply fold level after you have opened some things. So here I am opening some things with ZO, and now I just do Z capital X. Everything is closed back to the fold level that I specified, so it doesn't change the fold level at all. Then I have learned about expression mappings. They do something that I've been doing with this function called feed keys that emulates as if the user presses those keys while still not remapping them. It's a very interesting function. Turns out, if you set your mapping to expr equals true, you can now return a string to make that be like the literal thing. So you can see how in most mappings and like default mappings, this is just a string, which is your mapping, to another string, which is like characters that you want it to press, basically. Expert lets you do some logic and return different key combinations. And now you don't have to use feed keys. Unfortunately, there are some restrictions. As I've seen, or rather as I've been not able to figure out, if you try to use something like v count or v register or v count 1, I guess, or some other stuff, that just kind of didn't work for me for some odd reason. I don't really understand why. My, like, what I am imagining is the case is that the count of the mapping is not included in the mapping. It is like a state that is then applied. So if you try to, for example, here, return vimv count plus 1, and you concatenate it with whatever it was, this, then it doesn't work. Because you're trying to put in literal numbers when it expects a state of count. And by the way, yes, even like surrounding these in braces or in brackets also doesn't work. So I'm not sure what's the case here. Maybe I'm just wrong on something. I don't understand it fully, and I hope that's the case. If anybody knows what's up with that, please explain. But yeah, but a lot of other things, for example, here I legit just play a sound. That's a whole lot of logic here, right? And yet still I can return slash, and when I do slash, it plays a sound. It would if 1, I didn't have my PC muted, 2, I didn't have my audio muted, and 3, I didn't have sound effects disabled. I do all of this for stream, but usually, yes, it would play a sound for me, and then just return slash. So this is what expr lets you do. Very convenient if you want to make one mapping do slightly different actions depending on whatever code that you want. You have some restrictions on it, so let me try to find the doc page that you need to read to see what the restrictions are. I guess you could check vim.keymap.set with brackets, and somewhere in here you will find I think here. So new vim set keymap, let's go here. Maybe here it will explain. Don't quite remember when I got to it. Okay, let's search for expr again. Here it is. So search for h map expr. So this, I believe. This is why the telescope picker for the help pages is so helpful. You can find some help page even if you're not like sure about its name, because I wouldn't know this. So here it explains it more precisely, what it lets you do, what it doesn't let you do, etc. So if you want more details, go read that. Another thingy from this blog, which is very interesting. Let's open a new blank buffer and execute this curl and then some website, any link that you want. example.com. What this will do is get the HTML of some website, and then you can set your file type and work with this HTML as you want. So basically, this is a way to look at the HTML of some website in your editor as you usually would, which is really cool in theory. I don't really need to do this often, but otherwise this is really nice, because sometimes you might want to do a bit more expansive actions than DevTools is convenient for, right? So what is this command? We are passing the current line into this shell command, and the exclamation mark basically says, okay, we're going to execute a shell command. Why are we passing the current line? That is because when you open a new blank file, it has one line, and if we let me show you a different example, right? Open another blank buffer. So other way of doing this would be using the R command to read the output of the shell command after the current line. After the current line, which means that there's still a blank line here. But if we pass this blank line like this with a dot, then we basically replace this one empty line with the output of the shell command. So that's the semantics. Although I think what we can do is do something like 0R to read after line 0, so starting from line 1. Let's see if this works. Kinda, but not really, because it just moves the blank line to the end, which might not be an issue really, but still it's kind of when you have an ability to just replace it with the output. It's like a very small detail, but I find it to be very important. And yeah, and curl-s list, I guess, just gets the HTML. I'm not entirely sure, but you can supposedly use it. So go read about it. This has annoyed me basically ever since I started using Telescope. It's the fact that any time that you see the files that are not in your current working directory, your home is displayed like fully. So instead of displaying it like this, it displays it like home, your username, which is entirely too big. It's too much. All of this information should be implied from this, especially in the form of a picker, where you want to not get overloaded with information and only see information that is actually like important, I guess. And I fixed it. I finally fucking fixed it. So if we open a search from the current working directory, everything is as usual. Nothing like surprising here, I guess. It's relative to current working directory. Pretty sure it's the default. At least it doesn't seem different, right? But if I search in a different directory, now instead of displaying my home as the full home, it displays it with a like this thingy. So let's look at this file, for example. As you can see, it does indeed move me to the correct file, so it interprets it correctly, like it doesn't break anything basically, which is really nice. Now it's way easier and nicer to look at all of this and parse it visually, because in the past it would be like home axle full blur and then only t-test blah blah blah. So this is a fucking life changer. Let me go show you how I did this. In my options for telescope, in defaults, I added this function, path display, that takes opts, no clue what those are, and path. And I just return fname modify path. We replace home with a tilde symbol, and we also relativize it to current working directory if possible. And blammo, that's all you need. Another thing I'm almost more excited by, and probably just straight up more excited by, so I have two changes here. This is the git status picker of telescope. By default, if I stage this, my selection would jump it back to the first thing. It's not that big of a deal here because it's just only 2, but imagine I have 7 changed files. That means that any time that I stage or unstage something, my cursor jumps to the start and I need to come back to the previous thing that I had. And there's no relative line numbers here, so it's not very convenient to jump to some place. I have to just keep on pressing J or K. It's very annoying. But now, when I stage something, basically the picker needs to check things again and resort, and that's why it throws off your cursor. Now it just keeps the cursor on the same row. So I can go through each thing and stage and unstage it as I want without having to fix my position every single time. It is so good. And it was this simple. Just set selection strategy to row, which I assume means it will blindly just keep the cursor in the same row, even if it doesn't necessarily make sense. But at least in this picker it makes so much sense, and I haven't seen the behavior of my cursor just randomly moving to a different country in any other picker, so I think this is safe. I say I think because it is not explained. What the fuck is follow? What do you mean by closest? What does none do? Row you can somewhat guess, but it's still not super expansive on how it works. Reset? Okay. Huh? So like, it is never explained, and there's no other help pages for it. I guess you just have to guess, or read the source code. Amazing, Telescope, thank you. But at least there is an option to set that fixes this really annoying bad behavior. And I'm surprised that this is not the default, because like it seems like a very obvious thing to add for at least the git status picker. So if you are working on a distro and you're adding some like telescope support, please for the love of God set this option. It's gonna save your users a lot of head pain. And we have officially finished all the prepared topics for this stream. But would you look at that, we're not even at an hour, which is why we're gonna do some more things. Activating chill mode. Prepared content has finished. Now it's chaos territory. Yes, second snooze. Oh my god, she's so creative. And by the way, don't worry, I still haven't finished reading every single thing in this blog. I think we can go to it here, like this. Yeah. Oh, damn! I almost finished it. Like what, 60% or something? but I'll make sure to steal some more content from it. Let me just send you the link to the entire blog in case you want to read about it. It is basically what I was looking for. I was looking for tips and tricks for expert Vim users. And I think it's very, very fair to call myself an expert Vim user. If I called myself anything else, I'm pretty sure it would be considered sandbagging. So, yeah. And I got that. I got quite a few cool ideas. Some things that I didn't use or implement, I still found interesting and cool. So, really, really good blog. Actually, let's go figure out who this person even is, because... No, I don't remember this person. How did I find them? Mystery. Now we're gonna go to J. Oh my god, it's a different magazine. What the fuck? Let's check out what we can do here. What we can check out interactively. This I find to be very interesting, but not probably for stream. It's probably gonna be a bit annoying. Let's check out textcase.nvim. Okay, so it converts text under cursor to another case. And it's also repeatable, which is very, very good. Can use tree sitter, which is really nice. Nice. So word under cursor, and whatever this means. LSP conversion converts definition under cursor to another case. Oh my god, holy shit. So this plugin circumvents a possible issue that I was kind of expecting from this plugin. So usually just taking something and then searching for it, adding all to quick fix list, then do cfdo s and then replace. So a raw replace is often a bad idea, because I meant to replace feed keys, and then would you look at that, I also replaced all feed keys int, which I did not mean to. But if I replace feed keys using my language server, this is not a problem. Only this specific symbol gets renamed, which is why you should use LSP rename when possible. But yet, this plugin actually uses the LSP to correctly understand the symbol, which is really fucking good. That's amazing. Strange that it specifies supported targets. So not any motion is supported, only some of them. Which sounds scary. But alright then. Okay. Bulk smart replacement. That's okay, so converts all forms of specific text. This replace text will keep the original text case, whatever that means. If not specified, replaces every instance of the text in the current file. It can also be scoped to the selected block. Okay. Does subs. That was way too fast. Sub steps 1 to start students onboarding. Okay. I see. So you select something and you change that from one thing to another. I guess this is just a bad example, because what is stopping you from just inserting step 1 and replacing it with students onboarding? It would be a better example if it like showed the conversion from one case to a different case, which I assume it can. Okay, so that is so useful. Oh my god, it provides an API to just switch something to a different case. This can be very useful for your own mappings. That's really good. Hell yeah. Character compatibility. It is possible to transform the letter case of the Latin alphabet, as well as special characters related to it. Okay, that's good. So it doesn't seem like it supports something like Russian, for example, but at least some like special characters that's gonna catch a lot of languages still. I find it funny how every plugin seems to use the sentence, install with your favorite plugin manager, and then show something like plug or packer. Like, that's comical to me. Also, why does everyone keep using this strange formatting that will get auto-formatted to not be this way anyway? It's really strange. Holy fuck! That's a lot more configuration for lazy. Okay, so it depends on telescope. I assume if you want to. I'm hoping it will explain that. It uses config, which is an anti-pattern. You should be using opts. You should be using opts. I guess it's doing that mostly because of the load extension. I guess fair enough. I see. So you can select the case that you want using telescope. That's pretty cool. Then it uses the command things and then sets lazy to false, which removes the point of command. I guess same thing about keys, kinda. Sub's command name can be customized. Oh, that's really nice. Text case open telescope, quick change, LSB change. Text case start replacing command. I appreciate the readability of these commands, but these are impossible to type in interactively. I guess they're not supposed to be typed in interactively. Okay, if you want to use the interactive feature of the subs command right away, text case has to be loaded on startup. I don't believe that. I assume there's some way to lazy load it, but I guess you would have to figure it out. And for a plugin with how many 12 contributors and 387 stars, if it was doable, it would probably be figured out at this point, I guess. Otherwise, the interactive feature of subs will only be available after the first. Yeah, makes sense. All options with their default value. Okay, let's look at this. So, set a default mapping. God, I hate this so much. Plugins should stop adding default mappings. Just give a section of suggested mappings that the user can insert into their configuration. Stop, like, okay, if you do want to add default mappings, first of all, still show them to me, and I guess you do for some odd fucking reason in VimScript. And there's no Lua section, that's hilarious. But like, make me opt into it, not opt out of it. It's, like, genuinely, have a section in Lua, obviously, but if you can bother to in VimScript as well, because there's no like negative to it, to having it. And that section will basically be all the default mappings as they actually are, like as what they do. Make default mappings false by default, make users opt into them, and actually don't even bother why are you adding default mappings. I hate that in plugins so much, and they're like, okay, I overrode fucking S and capital S. What do you mean? How dare you actually? And yes, that's the default mapping that you have to now actually disable rather than opt into. It's, I hate that. It's only considered if prefix. If default mappings is true. Okay, then I don't care about that. Substitute command name is not nil. Add additional command with the name. I assume it has to be title cased still, because you cannot create a custom command that is lowercase, which is very unfortunate. But makes sense. That means that a lot of plugins don't end up overriding commands that you don't want, and then not providing you a method to undo that. All methods are enabled. If you set this option with some methods omitted, these methods will not be registered in the default key mappings. The methods will still be accessible when calling the exact Lua function. Okay, that's good. So even if you disable some of them, they are accessible still, which is cool. To upper, to lower. So I assume these two are kind of useless because you would just be using GU and G capital U, but maybe they convert from other cases as well. Also, considering that all of them, by the way, can you even, I guess you can't. All of them contain 2. Considering that all of them contain 2 and case, why didn't you just remove both 2 and case and just have it be upper, lower, snake, dash, and etc.? Title dash case is cursed. Oh my god, I just imagined it. It's so cursed. Constant case, dot case, phrase case. I hope they explain it. Camel case, Pascal, title. Pascal case and title case are the same exact thing. Or at least they should be. Or oh, maybe like title case in terms of there are multiple words and all of them are title case. Maybe that, yeah. To path case, that's interesting. To upper phrase case, yeah. I assume that's what phrase means. But then what the fuck is title case then? What is phrase case? Okay. Why VimScript? Like, why VimScript and why plug? You have written this, pretty sure. Yes, you have written this entirely in Lua. There's no VimScript to be found here. Why are the mappings in VimScript? Why? Why? That's so silly. Well, I guess the main maintainer didn't add a lot of these things that are currently in the README, and there was no key maps section at all. Somebody was using VimScript and plug and decided to add it because, yeah, it is still better than nothing, I agree. And then nobody else has bothered to add a Lua section, which is really silly. How to use it? There's a wiki. Okay, good. there's a telescope integration that we've seen. To list conversion options using telescope, register the extension as telescope and set up keybinds. Makes sense. So I will most likely just be using the telescope thing, at least at first, and then maybe make my own thing, my own mappings for each one of them that I actually want. An example above, when using what? In normal mode, choose options for quick and LSP conversion of the string. You have to explain quick. And also possible to trigger a list of options only for quick conversion or only for LSP conversion. Missed period. It only works for normal mode because LSP does not make sense for visual mode. Fair enough. Text case, open telescope, quick change. God damn. Which key I don't care about. Troubleshooting. Also, I don't care about development. Okay. Cool plugin. I will most likely install it. But I'm just now realizing. I'm sorry for duping you, I guess. But actually installing and configuring this plugin is too much for me. I will get overwhelmed, as I usually do when installing plugins to begin with, and doing this on stream as well is just impossible. So I hope my reading of it and my thoughts about it have interested you in the plugin or not, or made you decide that, okay, this plugin is bad for whatever reason. I'll most likely install it, get some usage out of it, and then explain my experience on some later stream, but I'll not be installing it actually, because it seems like the setup is kind of annoying to get through. And that's about it. Thank you for watching, and